Hello, dear viewers. We're in another show of our series, The Solution, where we're dealing with about Sulam's legacy, about the last generation. We have Rav Laitman here with us. Hello, everyone. With us here are economists. We want to have a discussion here in the studio and with the people at home. Through the last generation, we're trying to learn how that economy will look in the last generation. What guiding principles will it be built on this last generation? So today we're talking about ownership of property. Rav Laitman, I wanted to ask, in our research for the show, it turns out that this issue of property is a very central issue in all these economic approaches. We wanted to ask, where does this centralship come from? Why is it such a central issue, this private property? Private property comes from us being an egoistic desire to receive, each of us. It's made up of individual material that at its base is a desire to receive, to acquire, to be secure for today and tomorrow. And on this we build our lives, our foundation, our family, kids. Without that, you can't grow, you can't develop anything, not social, education, cultural. You can't be certain about the future, you can't develop society. Everything, first of all, is based on the economy. You are the economists, you know that. But the problem is, what was good up until 100 years ago, and even 50 years ago, started getting ruined in the middle of the previous century. Up until then, private property was a very solid foundation. Whatever somebody earned and acquired more and more, it appeared to be limitless, and you could advance. There was a good impulse, motivation, strong motivation for the advancement of society and the world. And approximately from the 60s of the 20th century, this principle started to weaken. And we see we're dealing with like a different approach, perspective of the world, and this actually comes from the developed countries. According to what I understand, when a person sees he can supply himself basic necessities, until then he's in a never-ending struggle to be sure, I have to, and I have. And in that, his ego is working in a linear manner. And when he acquires more or less and continues in the same trend, it starts to get ruined. It doesn't exactly work in a linear manner like before. Apart from that many people have reached a state where they can supply themselves relatively a normal life and guarantee life and pension and vacation, education for their kids, etc. I'm talking about North America, Europe. And then we began to see that people are losing their motivation in work. They need new motivation, new benefits, new incentives. The old ones, in the last 20 years, we see that we must give a worker, not the factory workers, simple ones, but the more sophisticated kind in the middle class, mainly. We have to give them, they have to be interested in work, they have to have a feeling of the collective society working together for a new goal. With owners, business owners started giving more freedom. You can work from home, you can work at work, you can get organized amongst yourselves into work groups that you want, etc. We began to see that a person doesn't just work for money, that he'll have money in the bank and that's it. And that's his goal. That can no longer be the main motive, providing enough energy to go to work. It loses taste. He needs some kind of new tastes, more spiritual, social. We see this in very, very big companies that they started encouraging people, workers with all kinds of different manners to pull the family into it, vacations together, kids organized around the workplace, kindergarten, schools, etc. There's like a combination between work and family and society. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And despite that, even though you put up salaries, you see that the production doesn't really go up in accordance with that. But if you change the relations at work between people working, with that you can really reach good results, that they support each other, that they're in a better connection between them. They have much better results and their work is much better. Apart from that, we see that even if we put up salaries, there's depression, there's lots of sick days are on the rise. All this gives us a lot of food for thought to see that we moved from a society that's completely materialistic, that works for a salary, the level of salary. It also works more for a person's position, honor, the feeling of the environment, more warm, nicer, that it's beginning after a certain level of the salary, that he's sure that he won't be short of anything, of the usual things. He begins to strive toward to a new kind of fulfillment. And it's not because he has a ceiling on his salary, it's because there's a difference in the nature of man in the last 100 years. 50 years in the 20th century, we're still in a state where everyone was running after economic success. And in 50 or 30 last years, we started to feel that it no longer, it's not the salary itself that obligates and fills a person. And we see this in all the research, depression, global depression, and everything that's happening. So businesses understood this a long time ago. They started to bring psychologists and experts and that are organizing new relations between workers, new special incentives apart from the salary. We see that no matter how much you raise the salary above a certain level, you don't get the same return on the increase. It just shows that our world is starting to change in an inner manner from inside. We can no longer look at a man throughout his thousands of years of development and how it happened in the last 30, 40, 50 years. A person is changing, and And we're reaching a very interesting result. You can play with the height of the salary until a certain level where a person feels that he's more or less satisfied for his regular life. And from there onward, if you need to get an addition from him at work, you need new incentives. And through this, we look ahead and we can see that if we combine this with what we see from nature, how we're becoming connected to one another, how the world is becoming connected, how the crisis coming now is organizing us, it's making us into one single line. We need to start thinking about a new paradigm. And that's why everything that Bala Sulam wrote are looking more and more realistic now. We created a brief about the various systems for property that exist. The question about the ownership of property is a very fascinating subject. It comes out of the understanding of the nature of man. What we're looking at here is how looking at man's nature brings to the best economic solution, and that's where the approaches came from. The capitalistic approach says that to reach the best fruits, we need all the property to be private property, which starts from a person's body and property, capital. It all has to be private. And the government's role is to maintain that this thing operates. And beyond that, they also claim that private ownership of production can bring about true equality and democracy. The next approach, I don't know, private ownership, if you go back to the Middle Ages, everything was private. Even people were owned by someone privately. It's nothing new. So what is there that's promising there the good advancement? I don't see it. I see in the approach also today. We used to think that the owner, if he wants to, with good work, if people do good work, he'll look after them out of his concern for the property, that the workers are looking after his property. But we see that a person's ego is unlimited. And here, he wants to squeeze everything out of them. At the end of the day, you don't see nice examples in any company throughout a long period of time that toward democracy, freedom, better relations. I think it won't be determined by the employer's nice relation. There used to be a king who owned a country. It will come from a person's nature changing. We're changing inside and we don't feel it, and that's what's happening. We just have to be sensitive to the time and the inner changes, and then we'll see how much we're changing and the world is changing. We have to give it time to see a trend. Also, in this approach, there's a claim the capitalists are completely aware of man's nature. And there's a claim that for the greater good, we also see it at the micro level. If everyone goes according with this method, we'll reach economic balance, a good economic result for the good of the society. That's one of the approaches. Another approach is the communist approach. That is not really implemented today, that is very famous, and let's talk about it. It says there's no such thing as private property. Everything is owned by the government. It also says that all wars, all the conflicts between classes are a result of private property ownership. To reach a future society, we have to get rid of the whole subject of private property and reach a state where nobody has anything actually, and everything is in the hands of everyone. It's not implemented today, but it's very famous. It was never implemented. What they tried to do in Russia, the nation wasn't ready and didn't understand. The nation didn't understand what was wanted from it, and also those that wanted to manage. The people that belonged to communism didn't really understand it either. They didn't understand that they need to educate the people first. Bala Sulam says it very clearly, that you cannot reach a collective form if the people themselves are not attracted to it, if they don't want it, and if they precisely want that and nothing else, and are willing to suffer to truly depress each person's ego. If everyone depressed their ego to reach the collective desire, the collective property as a result. Russia's not an example. It's just a group of people that didn't understand what they are doing. They tried in an incorrect manner at a time that wasn't correct, with a nation that just wanted to get rid of just got rid of slavery 50 years or less before that. Up until then, they were still slaves. It's not an example. Let's not look at communism from the word like collaboration, like Bala Sulam speaks of it. Cooperative. That system was also not implemented, even though some people want to bring it back. The most sophisticated system that combines both is the democratic system. It says everything has to be in dual ownership. We can't take it forcibly. Therefore, the government's job is not to interfere in private ownership, but in production. But the government, through taxation, through the social security, has to make equality, has to bring about balance. And they say there's no such thing as democracy without economic democracy. In a country where there's gaps between the classes, there cannot be democracy, because who can impact things? So it takes the communist approach and the capitalistic approach, but comes above and cuts for itself the coupon. It's an approach that has ends like Scandinavia and France and Germany on the other side, and it's a system that combines both. The one that's flourishing today is the cooperative model. What this model does, it says there are two approaches to private property. The first is ownership, and the other is my ability to manage the property. Let's divide my ability to manage the property, meaning I can be the owner of a factory, but the decision-making will not be connected to how my percentage. Say I own 50% of the factory, the people around me are equal to me in decision-making. That's why it comes from a cooperative, democratic economy. The amount of money I invested has nothing to do with my decision-making power. I have nothing to say. It's all limping. All these approaches, they're temporary, based on the mentality of the nation. We're all in relative advancement, each by their own and all together. They're learning from each other. What's good here, what's good in China is not good in Norwegia. In Sweden, sorry. So it's hard for us to talk about these situations today. You see how the owners of the big companies, it's hard for them to deal with these very sharp new changes that the crisis and blows are forcing them, ecology, and it's increasing all this. We have nothing to learn from them because it doesn't come from some research of nature, research of the nature of man. It doesn't come out of the necessity to be balanced with the general nature, that the crisis is forcing us each time to get a new shape. And if we're not in this new shape, then we feel it as a crisis. But it's actually not a crisis, it's new pressures. If I'm in school and in physics I'm not getting enough done, there's pressure. In math, there's also going to be pressure. And in chemistry I'm not doing well, then it's not really a crisis. Is it with the school or with me? But I have to always accommodate myself to the new demands. That's how we have to see our situation. This approach is still not accepted. Therefore, we don't make changes in society, industry, commerce, and in the economic system according to the new demands that we see. And these new demands come from the side of the development of the nature of man, the nature of humanity. And this development, we cannot stop. It's inside us. It comes from inside. And this is how we have to accept it and learn it and learn how to suit ourselves to it. And if it's not just a matter that we're not learning, but we also want to suit nature to what we think and not the opposite, then we're multiplying the crisis. And this is what we're feeling. This is what's happening. Until these blows will ultimately teach us. But it's like a kid in school that is going to absorb punishments and blows until he changes. So it appears to me, if we would dedicate a good massive research to what is happening with the nature of man and in society, not from what we see, but from the changes that we see, we would see trends towards a unified society, a collective society, and even communist. It appears as a trend. How can we reach it is the question. How to deal with the egoistic nature of man, that's the opposite to it, that's a question. But these are questions that we must deal with. Let's go to the quotes. I see Baal Sulam is talking about communism. So the communism, if it's justified toward the whole nation, it's justified toward all nations. Because what right or ownership does material of a country, one nation, have to the other? Who made the strong law? And it was acquired through swords. And one nation will take advantage of another. In one word, just like annulling the property for a single person, it is right to annul it for all. If the law does not allow a single person to have property, why do it to a whole country? And just like equal distribution, there needs to be equal distribution between countries, material things, industrial, and all the property must be distributed equally without differentiation between white and black, civilization and primitives, just like one big nation. He sees it a bit ahead of us, a bit forward. He doesn't see it as being a communist. It's a person that is very, very far from it by his nature and his strong nature and his approach in general, and also the education he received. Just this learning, this perspective that he sees in the development of humanity, that's what brings him to this. He's not like a friend of Marx. But what can you do if a person sees that nature is advancing us? Just like you can't do anything with the global warming, do something with the hurricane that happened now with Sandy. And what else is coming after it? What are you going to do? You can only maybe protect yourself a bit, go into a shelter or something. But if we see a trend against this, we have to develop a method how we cancel this trend. How can we balance things? We make certain compensation by adjusting ourselves. Maybe we're causing it. Maybe there's really a reasoning that people that don't suit in their nature, in their approach, in their relation to nature, maybe they're causing it. We're all in the last level, the human level, the highest level. It's possible that it's precisely us because of the relations between us, and there's also research about this, and even though it's just the beginning of our learning about our higher nature, maybe in this we're causing all the problems. And based on the trends in the last period, everything that a person's dealing with, we see that everything is going toward connection. Interdependence. Interdependence, whether we want it or not, it's closing in on us. It's bringing us closer together. The more we can be closer to each other and still each of us only thinking about himself, there's a limit to it, how much we can be closer together and hate each other more until it reaches an explosion or some kind of agreement of collaboration. So I want to talk about what we read in the quote. He's talking about equal distribution of assets and natural resources. Normally when a country finds natural resources, it belongs to that country. According to the Baal HaSulam's approach, who owns the oil, the resources? Everyone owns it. Let's say I found in Israel, we found gas, natural gas. Why does it belong to the United States? Why does it belong to everyone and not Israel? Why does it have to be like this? The land isn't owned by any country. But somebody invested in it. Somebody developed the area. Somebody found it, a specific person. You're talking about the transition state. We invested this much, we found like this, and now we have to pass it on to everyone. No, we're talking about the beginning to the end. If we're talking about approach, it's not half or a quarter. There's always a problem with that. If from now on we accept that we are advancing, first of all, we're not advancing in the fact that we found some gas or oil. We have to advance in that we educate the world, educate humanity to the new approach. We have to do a really dramatic, massive step forward with the whole world, a new law for the whole world. We are all being educated in the new integral education, in our vote, mutual guarantee. What is that? Learn first the law of nature. Forget about what he thinks, you think, American thinks. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm interested to know what nature is demanding of us. Nature is the same to everyone. Whether we want it or not, we're going to have to abide by its laws. So what is there to talk about? If a hurricane comes, you're a communist and he's a capitalist and I'm a socialist, is it going to touch us differently? What is there to talk about? First of all, you have to learn the laws of nature and to educate a complete generation correctly. Let's do it in 10, 20 years. And in accordance with that we're educating the generation and we're changing inside according to our general agreement between us in a pleasant manner, in a free desire to go this way. We will start changing things in industry, commerce, relations. We'll cancel borders. We'll build a government of the world, a world government, but it's based on the development of man according to nature. The fact that we have to be global around the world, we're all connected, of course, whether we like it or not. We're obligated to be connected between us. There's no choice. We're dependent on one another, whether we like it or not. We have to be equal. Whether we like it or not, we can't see it right now, but that's going to happen. If not, one is going to eat the other until there will be an average, either through wars or through, we'll see how to develop this balance. We have to reach a new economy. First of all, to supply each and every person with their necessities. Rational consumption each person has to have. And in accordance with that, when we get the integral education, we'll understand where we can save. They say you fill an airplane or you fill a race car. It consumes gas, enough gas to feed a person for an entire year. I'm not just saying it for nothing. We have crazy waste in everything. If you educate, it's not possible to do it in a dictatorship by pressurizing people in laws. All the countries like making laws. Every day you have hundreds of new laws around the world. And what's changing? We just need one law, accommodating ourselves to nature. And then if a person learns it, then everyone will gradually advance in harmony, mutual harmony. And it doesn't matter what we reach. It doesn't matter what we call it, communism, social democracy. The main thing is for us to live in a balanced world. That's it. In the advanced states, there won't be countries. Why? What for? That's what causes all the problems. All the wars are because of wars and borders, or hatred of religions or nations. What do you need it for? Nature doesn't treat us all equally. What's separating nations? Religion, borders, property. All these things have to be cancelled. To be cancelled, but not forcibly like communists did. They cancelled religion, so everyone became animals. That's also not good. They cancelled relations between people. So there's no motivation to grow. And so on and so forth. It has to be done according to education. We'll reach it. It's just a matter of how much blood and time it will take. But nature is obligating us. We spoke of between countries. You said property belongs to everyone. If we're talking about the globe, the planet, that we're here inside nature and it's treating us all equally, then why do we need to divide the planet by borders? Why is this yours and this is mine? If we see, even according to the current trend, where do you have borders between all kinds of big companies, the big markets? Where? What borders are there between them? Everything pours from one place to the other, flows from side to side. These borders, look how these borders are causing a problem in Europe. Look how choked they are, and they can't get rid of anything. Every little problem just makes 27 countries jump up. Look what's going on there. This is understood, but I'm asking inside a country. There's an example in Alaska that the oil, all the income from the oil goes as dividends to the citizens, and then they get extra money so they can live nicely. So it fuels their justified society inside the country. So how can we distribute natural resources inside a country? I don't know if it's possible inside the country to have equal distribution if it's not in the entire world, because the individual and the whole are dependent on each other. But let's say it's possible. But you're saying you want me to draw like a picture for you of a country that's like corrected and happy and corrected. So what's the question? How will there be ownership of property in a country? It belongs to the entire nation. And at the head of the country, you have a wisdom council that sit and think with a panel of experts, economists, social experts, scientists, sociologists, and they will verify the best way to reach balance, because balance is the general law of nature. How to make balance between everyone. Let's say Alaska. They're getting $2,000 a month, each citizen. A year, $2,000 a year. They're not getting a lot for that. It helps them. They get cheaper fuel and everything they need for heating. But in Russia, it's the same in North Russia. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to. It's a national goal to advance certain places, certain towns, or certain factories. Otherwise, people won't work there. They just won't be there, obviously. But at the end of the day, there has to be equal distribution between all citizens of the country, not poor people and not rich people. Equal distribution, which is necessary, rational for each and every person, and beyond that, you need to encourage everyone that invests more in society through by the society feeling him as a special person, through his kids, through his relatives, his neighbors. He has to get awards, etc. And the truth is that we're reaching states where we see here and there that big companies are using this approach also. They can see that money isn't enough to encourage people, but they have to they need new incentives, new motivation that can't be measured in dollars. A balanced society exists only under two conditions. Everyone must have a rational level of necessity, basic necessities, and beyond that, only inner fulfillment, spiritual fulfillment. Guy wants to ask something. We spoke of the communist system that you said that's the approach that nature is pushing us toward. We see throughout history that when the ownership of property of the country, we see that it's complicated management and it's also corrupt, doesn't give a good service to the society. What does this have to do with communism? That in communism, the ownership is in the government's hands and they're giving citizens in an equal manner. That's why I said that it can't be before education. We're all talking, all we're talking about is only after the people have been educated. If they're not desiring and dreaming for equal distribution, the nation, then you can't force them. So from an ideological point of view, we went through this process. I want to ask why Bala Sulam thinks precisely the communist method is preferred. Because it's in accordance with nature. Where does he take it from? I said again, he doesn't like Karl Marx. He has no special weakness for the word communism. What do you think? He's a kibbutznik? There's an Orthodox Kabbalist. He has nothing to do with those things. He just understands that nature at the end of the day is reaching a balance. If we have in this room a mess, different pressures, heat, cold, in a bit of time, what will happen? There'll be an average. So what's there to learn anymore? The same thing will happen in society. Just whether you like it or not. Here, nature is working against our ego, but at the end of the day, it'll bend us to be equal. So why not learn it in advance and be more sensitive to the fact that we need to be equal? And if it's possible in some place to suit ourselves. A lot of things are demanded of me, but a little bit here and there I can try. It'll be easier for me at the end of the day. I'll be better off. It all depends on awareness. You didn't feel pressure from your parents? Yes. I remember how they demanded. I didn't like learning music. They pushed me in an unbelievable, murderous way. Until today, I'm suffering when I remember. It was 60 years ago. It was like I feel now until I couldn't even forgive them for it. This feeling is, if I understood in advance how much it could help me throughout my life in all kinds of forms and situations, then I would have suffered less. But they still forced me. And you don't know how much aggravation it caused me and them, and it was terrible. Again, let's learn from life. At the end of the day, the wisdom of Kabbalah is not bringing us to some crazy imagination. The opposite. It's saying, I'm not saying anything. You will learn from nature and do. Because in that way, you'll always profit. This is the exact point. You said, let's learn from life. So the life that we know, the effectiveness of communism is the most least effective out of all the systems. But why are you saying the communist system and want to bring it to life, to learn from life? No. Why are you're making the same mistake, just like the communists, if it's possible to say in Russia, you're going exactly on their path. Same mistake. First of all, you have to prepare the people and bring the people to the level of communism, that they want to be in a commune, in equal distribution, that they see that this is truly the correct format. Then they'll do it themselves. You won't have to force them. Otherwise, you have to force them. What did Lenin do? He erased all property. Nobody has anything. He made everyone poor. People ate grass. And then they have no choice. He said to them, you'll get half a kilo bread a day if you go to work. Do they have a choice? That's how you build a society, a new, equal, free society. That's the approach. And that's what you want to continue. Let's say people are ready. We're talking about the effectiveness of equal distribution. If people are ready, everything else will not be effective. All the other approaches. What other approaches? All the other forms of life, apart from communism, will not be effective. Why? Because they will only want that. What will you do? If a person inside, from his inner changes that nature will make in him, nature will cause, the light, the correcting light, we don't really like using those terms here, but if you do a correction on the nature of man, then according to this correction, he will not be able to be in another form. Give him $1 million a day, it won't be an incentive for him. It won't be motivation for him to work. He will want to work along with everyone in some nice society, to eat together with them, to work together with them, to have a nice approach, to spend time with them. What does he need this $1 million a day for? What will he do with it? With the kids, with his wife, with the family. This is how he will feel good. But there has to be necessity, basic necessities. And then education, integral education, and in accordance with that, you'll have the implementation. That's understood. I'm asking from another direction. We are the public, and we're getting service from the country through all kinds of systems that the country manages. As the public, what's the most effective way for the country? Even though history says the country doesn't manage well, maybe a private person will come and know how to manage the country better and will know how to make services at the effective level, the consumers. I'm sitting between you. I'm in shock. It's the same mistake. They need education. If there's education and a person changes, then he will tell you what he wants. But I'm the public, I'm the consumer. Then I don't need to ask you. You say yourself what will be more effective. You'll know yourself. What's education? That you start to get a mind. I'm educating you. I'm raising you to a level where you will say by yourself, now I see that being an equal distribution, where everyone has basic necessities, and all the rest belongs to the whole of society and the whole of the world. In this manner, we are in identification with nature, and then we'll discover all the spiritual depth of nature. That's good. And a person will discover it himself in accordance with his desire. You, along with him, are organizing the change, not before, not a moment before. I'm going to ask from the side of the nature. Getting property together is nature. It's natural for security. So I know I can be certain for myself and my children. For security, you need a basement, a shelter to gather things there and sit there and be scared that you won't get hurt. Otherwise there'll be hurricanes, wars, robbers will come to you. That's the form that you need to reach if you're going on that individual path. That's what the Americans are doing nowadays. The question is like this. For me to come with an open mind to hear about the changes in the education method, I have to be sure that my kids have food. or on the condition that your kids don't have what to eat. God forbid. And it looks like that's what's going to happen soon. What will you do? You'll come to the education, integral education. It's not what I wish people, but nature will force you to come to this, either through good or through blows. We're trying to verify what the economic systems will be that will provide everyone with the basic necessities. I've been asking this wonderful panel here for a year already, make the new economic plan. What does it mean, equal distribution? And all this surplus remains for the country. All this surplus. What's the problem of equal distribution? If you have, like Israel, with 8 million people, each and every person has to get their basic necessities. Normal consumption, what is it? 20,000 shekels per family? Everything else goes toward housing, developing social systems, schools, health. Is it a problem to calculate this? It's not a problem. But we're trying to understand where the limits of property are. There is no property. You only have minimal property. You have a house, you have a car if you need, what you have at home, pension, vacation, everything that a normal person has. And multiply it by 8 million citizens, let's say. Is it a problem to do the math? It's not a problem to do the math. It's a problem how much the nation is educated. Yes, right. Good. But we're talking theoretically. The extent that the nation is educated and agrees to go along with it is the main function in the economic math, in the calculation. Why is it a function? It's not that we try to think about it on paper. If the country agrees 100% and you say tomorrow morning everyone is sharing everything, we're paying 80% tax and there's total collaboration, then that's a function for distributing those properties. The extent of education and agreement that a person comes with to the economic model is critical. But we've gone off path. I wanted to talk about the subject, about the last generation and ownership of property. Throughout history, it caused the development of economy. I'm saying this brought us in technological innovation across all sectors. How is this ownership of property, if we pass it over to the country, what interest will there be to develop balance with nature? Why do you think that development without borders is the trend and the goal and the right way to go? Where do you take this from? Do you want from this single ego to own the whole world and say there's no end to it, and here we go? You don't have enough, the planet isn't enough, go to the moon, go to Mars. I don't understand where you take these things from. Maybe I didn't ask properly. What I'm trying to ask, you said that ownership of property, a person had an interest to gather stuff. It's because he didn't have anything. But until you reach the normal level, relatively, you're not satisfied. You don't get satisfaction from the surplus. Apart from that, if you add in the educational aspect, you see it doesn't work. And then how do you give persons satisfaction against his problems? They're depressed. They are going to drugs. They don't know what to do. They're going out of their minds. What are you going to do with them? Soon 90% of the world will be unemployed. What are you going to do with them? What advancement are you dreaming of? Where do you live? Not based on statistics, not based on global trends. What you're talking about is gathering capital. I'm talking about enhancing health. If you do these things in a corrected manner, in the corrected society, you'll see how much surplus you have. Because even in that health system, 90% of it you can delete and people will be healthier. But if I don't acquire my own property, what will give me incentive? Education. You said yourself, education. That until we do changes in the society and the whole new model, we need education. So I'm asking, what do you need education for? To supply a person with fulfillment above the level of necessity, so that he'll collaborate with everyone, he'll be convenient with everyone, he'll receive filling from being along with everyone together in one society. That's the element of education. I understand at the moment it's very far from us, but we can reach it. First of all, nature will demand it. And also because there's no other fulfillment. Otherwise, he goes to substance abuse, or it's from inside. We don't choose these stages of development because they appear good or bad. They are necessary for our development. Stop opposing them. Let's look at the truth on one hand, and on the second hand, let's look at our economic approach and try to work in accordance with what is going to happen. The more we agree with it and the more we suit ourselves to this, the more we'll profit. I just want us to learn from nature. I don't care what the new economists think, this way or this way. According to history, these are facts. We're at the end of the show. We were talking about private property, ownership of property. So what new form will ownership receive? Every person will have to have privateness, their family, their wife, their children, relatives. That will always be next to me. There's no way around that. That's how I'm built from nature. What comes from nature, I accept as 100%. In accordance with that, a house, pension, vacation, child education, all those things, I need that to be covered. That is called basic necessities. That must be. Make a square. That's the person. This he must know that he has. And beyond that, that I have this, because I'm in a body and I have a family. After that, give me education so that everything else, all the rest of my free time is about thinking about everyone else, because this is covered. There's private property and there's public property. The private property, you need to give me security that I won't be short of anything. The public property, you need to give me education so that I will give up on everything else except for my private needs, and I will want it to belong to the whole, to the general public. So, dear viewers, we reached the end of show The Solution. Thank you, Rev. Laitman, and my friends, the economists. We'll see you in the continuation. There's a lot to talk about, ownership of property, but you're going to have to do the future economy. You're going to have to make the plan. Thank you for watching.